of this country, and for the glory of thy holy name. Please join me as we say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray, be seated. This honorable house now commences.
Item 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new member. Item 4, confirmation of minutes.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the confirmation, beg to move that the minutes of the meeting held at Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George, at Parliament Chamber on the 23rd of May, 2023, be taken as read.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's on Tuesday, 23rd May, 2023 at 9 a.m. be taken as read. As many as that opinion say aye, or the contrary opinion say no, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 23rd of May, 2023, 9 a.m., be confirmed.
Leader of His Majesty Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, corrections to the minutes. Just to point out that after the section questions, when I stood to ask the Leader of Government Business the question about the Labor Commissioner, after that point in the minutes, the statement that followed in the minutes indicated that I pointed out that I wanted to have the minutes, the answers to the questions before the sitting of the House. That's what the statement before it was submitted to the House. That's not what I said. I wanted to have it before the House meets. This, right? Not before it was submitted. So that's the correction.
Okay.
At the end of that paragraph.
Okay.
That is the
okay.
Point I was making. In other words, before we get here, all right?
You want to have responses?
I have to have the questions. If you need me, just a short explanation, because I wanted to be able to review the answers so that if I have follow-up questions, I can do so. But if I get it during the House, as the House meets, then it wouldn't help me. So it could be submitted to the House to you at any given time. That's not my problem.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
But before we meet, I must have the answer.
All right. All right, so it's an amendment to the minutes. All right, and that is noted. Once the minutes is corrected, we can have the minutes confirmed. So, leader of government business, would you now move the motion? You made the correction, Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it has been accepted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear those things. Okay.
All right, so leader of government business, just move the motion for the confirmation again.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we accept the recommendation for change, and I now move that the minutes be now confirmed. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George, on Tuesday, 23rd May 2023, at 9 a.m. be confirmed. All those of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Item 5, messages from the Governor General. Item 6, announcement by Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, a pleasant good morning. I have a few bits to say. First of all, I have received word from Honorable Joseph Andel that he is out of state and can't be attending this particular sitting. I've also heard from Honorable Peter David, MP for the town of St. George, who has a pressing engagement and is unable to attend today's sitting. By way of announcements as well, I have not seen Honorable Kirin James. I'm informed by the clerk she isn't here. I was assuming that she might be late. All right, so she informed the clerk that she is unable to be here with us. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing the light. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister for Finance, is attending a meeting on behalf of government, so he's presently out of state. Similarly, Honorable Kirin James and Joseph Andel, so all of them are on government business, as mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Ms. James is in Caracas.
All right, thank you very much, Leader of Government Business. But just to remind members that try and inform Parliament. We all are human beings, and for whatever reason, sometimes we may miss meetings. But try to inform the Parliament before, if you can. If you have an emergency, you don't have much of a choice. But try and inform Parliament before that you are unable to be here at the sitting. All right, thank you, Leader of Government Business. May I continue? In our previous sitting, the Honorable Leader of His Majesty Opposition raised the issue of the Public Accounts Committee, and I did say to the Honorable Member that I would look into it in short order, and I did research and examine the standing orders, and found that the committee, as is properly constituted in terms of having members from both houses. Section 69, subsection 3, bullet I, and A speak to that, right? So in terms of the standing orders and the suitability for membership in the Public Accounts Committee, members from both houses, Parliament may decide to put those folks there. So I thought I would just bring this to the attention of the members, so we are clear as to how we proceed. And if the honorable member has some other information that I don't have, I guess you would visit me at some point, sometime. I want to finish the announcements. Yeah. All right. To say also to the Parliament that in September of this year, we will be having the Parliament Outreach Day, and the plan is to have a member of Parliament visit a secondary school. That's the plan, right? So a secondary school, because altogether, I believe we have approximately 80 schools. So since it is just about 22 high schools, Parliament thinks it is easier for us to do the outreach among our secondary schools. So for Carriacou, Mr. Andrew may have to send on another member to Carriacou, because you have 2 high schools up there, right? But the idea is to do this outreach. All the members of Parliament will be at a particular school at the same time on the same day. This is one of the things that we're supposed to do as Parliament, have an outreach in the community or in our schools. And since our youth, our children is the future, Parliament decides this year that the outreach will take place among our secondary schools. Right? Just giving the heads up so you keep your calendar open. It will be in the second half of September. We have to first confirm with the Principal Association and then give you the exact date. All right? And I think those are the bits of announcements. You may proceed.
Item 7, presentation of petitions. Item 8, presentation of papers and reports from select committees. Item 9, unopposed private business. Item 10, questions.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to ask question number 1, which involves COVID economic support to the Honorable Minister of Finance. This question is standing in my name. I don't know that I have to read the question, it's already there. And of course, as the standing order quite rightly would say, whenever a member is absent, he may designate
someone else.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
If that is the case, then we need to know.
Okay. That is the
Mr. Speaker.
sorry, Honorable Prime Minister, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Honorable Member for St. Patrick West, who is the Minister for Finance, I will indicate on his behalf that written responses to the questions for the Honorable Minister for Finance were provided to the Clerk of Parliament yesterday afternoon. I am aware that there was no acknowledgement of receipt of the email, so I can't say whether the answers were forwarded in time to the Honorable Leader of His Majesty's opposition. Thank you.
All right, just hold. I've seen your light, just hold.
Sure.
I myself, I've just seen the responses, right? So it actually came in yesterday afternoon, as the Prime Minister said, but I just saw the copies. Go ahead, Leader of the Opposition.
It's a slight correction from what the Honorable Prime Minister pointed out. He said the representative for St. Patrick West, it's St. Patrick East.
Yes, that's Honorable Dennis Cornwall.
I don't want you to change constituency overnight.
All right, thank you. Yes, you may.
The next question, number 2, is addressed to the Honorable Minister of Finance again. This involves traveling of members of government.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, similarly, the responses were also provided
Here.
yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Leader of the Opposition.
And I stand to ask the next 3 questions to the Honorable Minister of Infrastructure and Civil Aviation, etc., etc. Question 1 is about the Western Main Road project. Question 2, the Millennium landslip. And question 3, St. John's River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the written responses to the questions have not yet been provided. I do have the answers, however. I certainly would prefer to have them sent in writing so that the Honourable Leader of His Majesty's Opposition can obviously deliberate on them, and then if he has any follow-up questions, we can do so. I don't think it would be convenient for me to stand and respond to each one line by line. So I'm going to take by the end of this day to have the formal responses sent.
Yes, I agree with that because the questions have so many sub-questions on them. It will take us a long time to try to answer them here. I have no problem with you providing the Honourable Leader of the Opposition with the written response that have been done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I expected that question number 1, the last sitting, which is to the Minister, the Leader of Government Business, would have been back in the order paper because it was not answered at the last session. The question answers to the Labour Commissioners. In fact, I did point out through my staff through the clerk, that I expected that would be back on the order paper for answers at this sitting, because it was not answered.
But did you receive a response?
The question was not answered, Mr. Speaker. That's what point I'm making.
No, that is different.
Ask for response.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes.
It's one thing to say to the House that the question wasn't answered, and it's a different thing to say whether or not you receive a response from the member. That's what I'm trying to ascertain.
Well, I'm saying that I'm only interested in the answer to the question. I'm not interested in a response. I'm interested in an answer. The question was asked, and I expect an answer. That's all I'm saying.
And you didn't receive an answer?
No answer.
Okay. Well, the Leader of Government Business would have to provide the office of the Leader of the Opposition with the response to the questions asked. All right. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, you finished with the questions?
Yes, well, I'm finished. Except to say that the point you made, I received literally a trashing from the Leader of Government Business about the question, but no answer.
All right. Is that an interesting choice of word, Honourable Leader of the Opposition? Trashing? I caution members about how you treat each other. No trashing in the house. Please. All right. You may continue. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to inform the House and the Leader of the Opposition that I did receive late last night a response for the question asked and that will be forwarded in due course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Leader of Government Business. All right, let's move.
Item 11, urgent questions under the provisions of Standing Order number 21, notice of questions. Item 12, statement by ministers.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wish to update this Honorable House on the Ministry or the Department of Housing within the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Mr. Speaker, some time ago, we concluded the audit, and it was subsequently laid before this Honorable House. 4 years of outstanding work. The final year of audit for 2022 is currently being contemplated. Mr. Speaker, in respect of the Housing Authority of Grenada, we continue to try to bring structure to the organization. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, that management was very weak and still is, and so the Board of Directors has moved in to add staff where it's needed. So in this context, Mr. Speaker, a new finance manager and HR manager is being installed at the Housing Authority of Grenada as they continue to restructure the organization to bring some semblance of order. The financial performance has been extremely weak over the past few years, and there appeared to be no structure. And so, Mr. Speaker, we sought to put together a business plan for the proper functioning of the organization. That business plan, Mr. Speaker, having done an evaluation of the various processes, the original business plan that was submitted became irrelevant, and so a new business plan had to be redone to focus on all the important elements of the organization to ensure that proper attention is paid to the various revenue generating units. And there are 5 or 6 of those units, Mr. Speaker. And every single one of them have been generating losses. Good for the Housing Authority of Grenada, basically they have been surviving on government subvention. Basically. And this cannot continue to happen. Mr. Speaker, the various housing sites we have conducted through the use of a consultant a study of all the various sites, all sites. And a report has been submitted to Cabinet. The Lackalone site, Mr. Speaker, there's an issue regarding title. Similarly for the Dunfermline site. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have to dig a little deeper into these 2 sites to hear from the residents with a view to regularizing their living conditions. The buildings, most of those buildings are in a dilapidated condition, filled with molds on the inside in some cases, or in most cases, rotten railings, and in some cases, railings have fallen off these high buildings, which pose imminent danger to the users of these buildings. Water has been penetrating the building from the roof in some instances, which cause electrical shock to some of the residents. Sewer water apparently backs up into the face basins and so on, creating very bad condition for people to live in. So there has been quite a lot of it. So the report has been submitted, Mr. Speaker. We would now need a cooperation of residents from all the various sites so that we can begin to structure a homeowners association on all of these sites. And people would need to contribute, Mr. Speaker, towards the insurance and towards the upkeep and maintenance of these sites. Government would be prepared to do its part. But in order for this to be fixed, there must be a partnership. Because we're talking about a lot of millions of dollars per site, because these are large sites. So, Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with the Housing Authority, its board and management, to make this happen. We are happy to report, though, that the Lackalome Waste Management Site, or the sewer system, is complete. And sometime in July, we would be able to officially commission the site. It's a sight to behold, Mr. Speaker. After spending $1.2 million, we are happy to report that the site is complete, the residents are happy, and there are no foul scent on approaching the Lackalome housing site. The distribution of the units, Mr. Speaker, continue to be something of great interest to the cabinet. I am being questioned every single week that we meet about the distribution of these units. But we must get it right. So we have sought to install cabinetry closets into these sites. Because when we visited some of the other sites, we recognized that people moved in and they did not have any place to put their clothes or the grocery. And after 10 years, groceries still on the ground, clothes still on the ground, still in boxes, as the case may be. So we have been doing that. We're also going to ensure that there is a homeowners association on every one of these sites, and that people contribute towards the maintenance and upkeep of these sites. What we are doing, Mr. Speaker, we are partnershiping with the People's Republic of China for the deliverance of these housing units. So we have to do our part. We do not want to create a situation, a ghetto situation. We want to ensure that when people move in there, they understand that there are conditions for living and that they have to conduct themselves in an orderly fashion so that we have a community of people living together as opposed to just individuals occupying a living space. So, Mr. Speaker, we continue to do that, and we hope that within a few short weeks, we will be able to really get the process going. The application process has been completed. We still await the committee to submit the report so that Cabinet can give its final blessing so that the process can continue. And so I wish to simply say to all the applicants, everybody could not succeed or will not be able to succeed. But Mr. Speaker, we've had quite a number of applications submitted, but only a limited number of housing units. We try to be as fair as possible to ensure that people are treated with a sense of dignity, and that when these houses are distributed, it is distributed in a way that is equitable or fair to people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of Government Business. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Joseph Vandal, MP for St. Patrick West, I think I have it correct this time. Mr. Speaker, I wish to announce that the 4th of July, 2023, marks the 50th anniversary of the founding of CARICOM by the Treaty of Chaguaramas, which was signed by the founding fathers of CARICOM, who for the most part, in many respects, were also the founding fathers of the respective nations that first started CARICOM. Bearing in mind, obviously, the prior failed attempts at West Indian Federation. Mr. Speaker, Dominica is in fact the incoming chair of CARICOM. But the Honorable Prime Minister of Dominica, Mr. Roosevelt Skirt, has graciously acceded to a request by the government of Trinidad and Tobago that in light of the 50th anniversary of CARICOM, that CARICOM's meeting should be held in Trinidad to coincide with the 50th anniversary celebrations to commemorate the 50 years of CARICOM's founding. And in honor of celebrating and recognizing the continued work and the past work towards regional integration, towards closer ties amongst our brothers and sisters within the CARICOM fraternity, CARICOM heads informally agreed, of course subject to domestic agreement from the respective cabinets, to have the 4th of July 2023 declared as a national or public or bank holiday in the respective territories. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that the Cabinet of Grenada has so agreed. And so I'm indicating publicly for the first time that the necessary formalities would be done to ask Her Excellency, the Governor General, to declare the 4th of July 2023 as an official bank holiday to mark the 50th anniversary of CARICOM. Mr. Speaker, we intend to announce a series of activities to commemorate the 50th anniversary. We obviously will be asking all members of the House, as well as members of the Senate, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and the general public to join us in celebrating this historic moment. The road to CARICOM, the road to Caribbean integration has not always been an easy one. But I think unquestionably, Mr. Speaker, we are better off because of CARICOM. And in the context of Grenada in particular, given our own sometimes turbulent political history, we have certainly benefited from being members of the OECS and from being members of CARICOM. And I think we owe a debt of gratitude to all of those in the past who have helped to support and maintain Grenada's democracy and Grenada's freedom. And so I'm indeed honored and pleased to be part of the 50th anniversary celebration of CARICOM. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you to Honorable Prime Minister and MP for St. George Addis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you and staff and all honorable members. Mr. Speaker, at the Department of Youth in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture, I would like to update this honorable House on the status of the Imani program. I would say, Mr. Speaker, that we are satisfied that we have completed a proper internal audit of the program. We have seen several trainees thus far transitioned into permanent jobs, and that is still ongoing. It's a process that is still ongoing. The NTA has been able to complete the future concept, which will deal with the transition and the shape the program will take thereafter. They will present to the cabinet in short order on this. And we will complete another round of meetings, Mr. Speaker, with the private sector representatives, which is to say that government's policy towards this is not to promote the provision of free labor or subsidized labor to the private sector, but the private sector themselves must be able to take the young people, provide permanent jobs for them, so long as we provide assistance in training, skills, etc. And so we are satisfied that the private sector has been receptive thus far and will give us the affirmative to commence the full-scale operation of transition of the young people. Mr. Speaker, we still do have some challenges with the program. Two such challenges are that in the audit, we were able to discover workers who are as senior as 72 years, and several are over the age of 60. And so we need to fix that gap and fix that problem so that we could be able to deliver an energetic program and a program that is going to fulfill the mandate of building our young people into model citizens so that they can be productive. We also have another problem with the program in which May of last year, 1,200 young people were just added to the program. In fact, they are yet to receive placements simply because no provisions essentially were made for that placement to occur. And as such, we inherited some challenges with that. So a number of them are actually home, and I cannot confirm to date whether all the 1,200 are home receiving stipends, but they were added to the program without placement and have not commenced their series of training. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, the intentions are clear. We have not disbanded the program. We intend to build the Grenadian young people into excellent model citizens. And the truth is that we have commenced the alternatives such as expanding the creative economy and allowing for that to take root so that our young people can find meaningful jobs. And we have also implemented, or rather commenced, the implementation of TVET skills, which we ideally believe will be the alternative. The challenge that we've discovered is that, again, the Department of Youth was not equipped with the necessary capacity to deliver such a program. And therefore, ultimately, it would have ended as it did and created this problem that we have today where young people have been training over 13 years and do not have the question of job security. So we are confident that with more time passing, we are going to correct this issue and promote what should be and not what was in the past. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you to a member for St. George Morris. And I notice the light of the MP for Carriacou and Peter-Martinique.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, I just want to give a brief update. Things happening in Carriacou and Peter-Martinique. But you know, before I start, Mr. Speaker, to start on a sad note and use the opportunity as Member of Parliament and also Minister for Carriacou and Peter-Martinique to extend condolences to the family of Royal Constable Leslie and Braveboy, who passed away early this morning. And of course, I know the family well, and I visited Sister Leslie not too long ago, I believe on Sunday, at the hospital in Carriacou. And it's sad to hear this morning that she has transcended. So may her soul rest in peace. And let me just put on the record our sympathies to her family. Mr. Speaker, you know, a lot has been happening in Carriacou. The first thing that I want to report, I recall last time sitting here, I recall talking about our licensing unit, which was in Grenada at the time and had to be set up on island. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to report that the licensing unit is now up and running, and I printed my license in Carriacou, my laminated license in Carriacou. It took less than 10 minutes to do. It took less than 10 minutes to print. And I want to bring some context to this so that people understand, Mr. Speaker. The drivers of Carriacou and Petit Martin, Mr. Speaker, they paid for the license, the laminated license, and had to come down to Grenada for it to be printed, or had to wait months before receiving the license, the laminated license. This has been a cry of constituents for many years, and I'm happy that as Member of Parliament and as Minister, that my ministry, along with Ministry of National Security, collaborated together to make this a reality, so that no longer the drivers have to wait months before receiving their laminated license, and in some cases even been threatened by police officers to give them a ticket because they only had a receipt. In some cases the ink was washed away on the receipt. So those days are now over. And I'm also happy, Mr. Speaker, to report that the Ministry of Carriacou and Petit Martinique Affairs now have an electrical inspector attached to our ministry, the Division of Public Works. Mr. Speaker, again, let me bring it into context. The people in Carriacou had to wait months before an electrical inspector could come from Grenada to inspect electrical problems in Carriacou, which slowed down the economy, bad business. And I'm happy to report that within 1 year of being in office, that we have addressed this problem, Mr. Speaker. If that is not transformation, well then, I don't know what is. Mr. Speaker, I'm also happy to report, because I believe the last time that we were here, I talked about the issue that the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique have been faced with regarding the unfortunate situation at our power plant, Grenlec. Happy am I to report that while we're not out of the woods, that we are no longer faced with the blockouts and the load shedding, that Grenlec and the team of workers that Grenlec has now restored electricity. 100% of the island is now back up and running, and I'm very happy for that. The team at Grenlec must be commended, along with the cabinet, for standing side by side with the team in Carriacou to ensure that this happens. So I just want to place on record, Mr. Speaker. You know, looking through the budget for 2023 budget, Mr. Speaker, we made a number of bold statements in terms of what we intend to do for Carriacou and some of the things that the ministry was charged with doing. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that some of the infrastructural work that we said would have happened in Carriacou are taking place. The Windward Fish Market, which some of my cabinet colleagues, along with Prime Minister, visited over the weekend, is well on the way. I mean, if you look at the present fish center that's there, it's dilapidated, mold, it's all cracks all over. And Windward being one of the areas where you have a number of fishermen, fisher folks, we've made the decision to build a brand new fishing center. And not just a brand new fishing center, you know, Mr. Speaker, but a fishing center, a transformative fishing center, a modern fish center, which also includes a jetty for the fishermen of Windward and surrounding areas. So I'm happy that this project is actually on stream. It's taking place, and hopefully within a couple more months it will be completed. And I would invite a few of my friends and honorable members here to come up as we open up the fish market up there, Mr. Speaker, the fish center up there, Mr. Speaker. I'm also happy that one of the main roads on the island, the Bel Air Road, which is the main emergency road to our hospital, which has been in terrible conditions. This is a terrible condition over the years. Very narrow, cracked up really bad. It's a major, major problem. And the emergency service, whether it's a fire along with the ambulance, hospital, has always been complaining about this road and something that needed to be fixed. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that work is now taking place on the Bel Air Road, and hopefully in a not too distant future that road will be completed, Mr. Speaker. I'm also happy that some of the sidewalks and drains around the town is being done, and widening of our roads and so on throughout the town of Hillsborough is taking place, Mr. Speaker. And I can go on and on and on about all the wonderful things that we are doing in Carriacou and Petit-Martinique that is benefiting the people up there. And to think that all of this is happening in 1 year. And sometimes I ask the question, you know, I recall that there was a particular political party being in charge of the affairs of the island for almost 25 years. And I am saying with all of these things that has to be done. And we are doing as much as we can in 1 year. And if we can do all of that, Mr. Speaker, if this transformative team, which is led by the Honourable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, the best Mitchell, if we can do all of this in 1 year, just imagine, Mr. Speaker, what we'll be able to do in 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms when the time comes around. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable MP for Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, and now I invite the MP for South St. George to make his contribution.
Good morning to everyone. And Mr. Speaker, I must start by commending the MP for Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Affairs for the wonderful work that he is doing in Carriacou. Mr. Speaker, also let me just report on implementation for Carriacou. Based on our budget implementation, I can see that Carriacou implementation rate has surpassed 100%. Mr. Speaker, as a government, and according to our budget implementation matrix, for to date, we can see that our implementation rate is approximately 87%. And Mr. Speaker, let me just reiterate the point that we are seeing significant improvement in implementation, Mr. Speaker. And let me just add again by saying that we lost some funds and we were able to get it back. And it was because the lending agencies saw that we were making significant strides in implementing our projects. So I want to really commend our team for the hard work and dedication. And Mr. Speaker, I pray that we continue to do what is best for the country. In addition, let me just report on some projects that had zero or little implementation over the past 5-6 years. But now we have seen tremendous improvements. And I'm talking about the OECS tourism project. That's where we will be turning Fort George from a police headquarters into a tourism site. And over the past few years, since August 2017, we saw an implementation rate of approximately 0%. But to date, we are seeing an implementation rate of approximately 63%. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we are on the verge of, I would say, losing the DG4 project. We were in trouble. The project was behind. Also, the G-Cruise project, we were in trouble. The project was behind. And now we are up to date on those two projects. And I want to personally thank Mr. Isaac Bagwan for his hard work on the G-Cruise project. And we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, huge sums of money. So here we are, 1 year after being in government, and you can see the tremendous strides we are making when it comes to implementation. And Mr. Speaker, before I leave, I want to just say to us as honorable members of the House that when we leave, we have a responsibility to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique to report the truth. And I want to address a matter, Mr. Speaker, that that bothered me because I think it will affect some people in adverse ways. And Mr. Speaker, I heard after we left Parliament last, the member of the leader of the opposition saying to members that this administration lost $80 million, and in any other country we will be asked to resign. And Mr. Speaker, nothing could be more further from the truth, because since 2016, and he was making reference to the UK SIF project, since 2016, that fund was on the books, Mr. Speaker, and during his reign, you can say it was approximately six years, nothing was done. And that was why we lost the funding for the project. And it's because the UK now have confidence that this administration will do different. That is why we got back the funding that we lost. So I just want to impress that we need to speak the truth when we address our people and we are reporting on these things as honorable members of the House. So again, I want to thank my team for really pushing hard, and we will continue to push hard to move Grenada forward and to improve our implementation rate in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MP, for St. George South. Is your light still on, Honorable? All right, thank you.
Item 14.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I, under that item, to recall the last session that I spoke on this, and I thought I explained myself. But listening to you this morning, I clearly recognize either you did not hear me well, or you misinterpreted what I said.
Go ahead.
I pointed out, Mr. Speaker, throughout the parliamentary system, and you could check the records throughout our parliamentary system in the Caribbean and outside the Commonwealth. Public Accounts Committee historically has been made up of generally members of the opposition for obvious reasons, when they are available, if they are in fact members of the opposition, and if they are backbenchers, members of the lower house, that is, who have no governmental responsibilities, those persons can also qualify. That's a historic thing. I made that point very clear. I did point out, and it's well known, that in 2013 and 2018, that we had no such members. So the Parliament could have just not have any public accounts. That's what they could have done, no public accounts. But we didn't think that was the right thing to do. So we sought to amend the standing orders, which you just referred to give support to the appointment of members from the upper house. That's what we did. So that was not customary. So what you read was about the standing orders were changed. That's the point. And I didn't point out, you could stick to it if you want, because the Parliament has that power. Do you want to stick with something that is not the norm or the historic position, or do you want to do what is necessarily the common thing? That's the issue. And I did point out an example of a regional Commonwealth symposium on public accounts where members of our government were present. And when it was reported that members of the upper house, we were challenged and said, well, this is not in keeping with the spirit. And we had to explain our situation because they apparently did not realize. So it posed a problem for the country, that we are not doing something which is in keeping with the spirit of the Commonwealth position on public accounts. So the point I'm making is, we could stick, we have the power. This Parliament has the majority. You can stick to the new amended standing order and appoint members of the Senate. But this is not, this certainly is not the best. So I was just saying, we should stick with what is regionally and internationally accepted. But as I said, I didn't say we did anything on present system that we don't have the power to do, but I was advising that we do otherwise. That's all I was doing. It's because I don't want to be said that if I was asking something to be done which was not necessarily correct. So we could leave it at that, Mr. Speaker, but I suggest that we could make that change since we have enough members of the opposition. That's the point I was making.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Yes, you notice in section 69, subsection 3, bullet II, section A, it says at the end, the Public Accounts Committee may comprise of a chairman and other members of the House of Representatives and the Senate as the House of Representatives may determine. Right? To me, this is the operative part here, as the House may determine. Right? And the amendment has given us the flexibility to leave it as is, or to change and go back to tradition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just suggesting that we go back to the standard, what is historically done in our country, historically. That's all I was suggesting, that members, we can continue what we have, but we could also do what was customary over the years. Throughout my entire period of almost 40 years service, that has been the case here.
Okay, well, let's hear the views of the House. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this particular amendment to the standing orders was made back in 2002. That is 21 years ago. So there has been government changes over that 21-year period of time. Times in which there was opposition and government, as well as times when there was just 15 members on the government side only. So much time has passed on this to begin with. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, this is not even the place for this contemplation. This particular discussion must be obtained at the level of the Standing Orders Committee. At that committee, those recommendations ought to be tabled, discussed, and if the members of that committee sees fit, then they may make the relevant recommendations for change. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is rather simple. We're neither here nor there as far as this is concerned. The point is we have standing orders that exist at this moment. We must abide with the standing orders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of Government Business. All right, I see. Honorable Leader, please use your light.
Huh?
No, I saw your hand raised without your light on, so I'm not sure that you want to make a point. Yeah. Go ahead, because I'm going to close on it. Go ahead, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. I'm going to close on it
I'm simply
after you.
saying there's no need for any long debate on this, Mr. Speaker. I am suggesting what was customary over the years. There was no member of the Senate until the period where we had 15 seats. That's why I'm suggesting we go back to that. That's all. If members do not want to, then leave it like this. But I certainly believe it's not, in fact, the way we should go. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so honorable members, thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Honorable members, we will continue with the Public Accounts Committee as is. We will advise the Standing Orders Committee to revisit the Standing Orders, because I think one of the issues here is it doesn't lay down the conditions under which members of the Senate may be considered to be maybe considered as suitable candidate for members of the Standing Orders, of the Public Accounts Committee. So my position as Speaker is that we continue with our present Public Accounts Committee and ask the Standing Orders Committee to revisit this particular clause and maybe other areas of the Standing Orders. Right? We may proceed.
Item 14, motions. Item 15, bills.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, at the sitting of June 23rd, 2023, we considered the first reading of a bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023. Since then, Mr. Speaker, certain changes was made to the bill, and the implementation date for that bill has since been changed from July. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to withdraw that particular bill, a bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. It's self-explanatory that the bill entitled National Insurance Bill, as presented by the member, is now withdrawn from the House, and so that is agreed. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023.
A bill which seeks to amend the National Insurance Act, Chapter 205, shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. All those of that opinion say aye.
Mr. Speaker, clarification, remember, I think we did the first reading already, right? Huh? We did.
Honorable.
We did the first reading already on the last. Isn't that the one you're doing now?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the same names. Okay.
yeah, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, he has withdrawn that one.
Oh.
Yeah, this is what he said. He has withdrawn that one.
It's the same name, so I'm not sure.
Oh no, but he has withdrawn that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're moving to the edited or adjusted bill.
Are you sure what happened? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
$3,000 every week for 3 months.
What?
Yes, it's the NLA's Crazy Cash Giveaway Promotion. Every week from April 11th to June 30th, 3 lucky Daily Games customers will randomly win $1,000 each week. Imagine winning as much as $36,000 in 12 weeks.
How?
Spend $12 in a single purchase on Daily Cash 4, Daily Pick 3, or Playway. Look for the words Cash Winner on your tickets to collect $1,000. The more you spend $12 on your favorite daily games, the more chances you have to win. Must be 18 or older to participate. All prizes must be collected by July 7th, 2023. Other terms and conditions apply. See stores for details. NLA, making your dreams come true. Money, money, money.
Good morning, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Pick 3 Mid-Morning Draw for today, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I am Anisha Charles. With me this morning is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in a fair, accountable manner, and the game balls with industry standards and in no way tampered with. The century tickets at hand. It's Daily Pick 3. It pays to play. Good luck. First of this morning is check your tickets in the meantime. First number is 3, second number. Second number is 6, third and final number. Final number is 1. Let's recap those numbers. Numbers on the screen. Check your tickets. First number is 3. The second, 6, third and final is 1. So that's 3, 6, and 1. Congratulations, all winners. For Daily Pick 3 tickets drawn last evening, we had a total prize payout of $8,980 with a total of 46 winners. And of course, congratulations to those of you who are part of this payout. Tune in next. We got to play with Multi-X Draw. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everyone, to another Play with Mid-Morning Draw for today, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I am Anisha Charles. With me again is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in a fair, accountable manner, and the game balls with industry standards and no way tampered with. Let's play Playway, value your dreams on your way. Good luck. This morning's winning query number is... The winning query number for this morning is 2. Let's recap the number 02. 2 represents the dream symbol fish. Congratulations, all winners. It's now time to select your Multi-X winning ball. Reminding with Multi-X, you can multiply your Playway winnings with FP, 2X, 3X, and 5X on your winning Playway bet. Hope you got your tickets out. Let's play and good luck. This This morning's winning multi-X ball is FP. Let's recap. Your winning multi-X ball for this morning is FP. Congratulations to all winners. For Play It multi-X tickets drawn last evening, we had a total prize field of $57,072 with a total of 638 winners. And of course, congratulations to those of you who are part of this payout. Tune in next to get your daily cash flow draw. We'll see you really soon. Welcome back, everyone, to another daily cash flow mid-morning draw for today, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I am Anisha Charles. With me once again is Ms. Makiba Bean from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in an accounting manner, with the game balls with industry standards and in no way tampered with. This time, your tickets at hand. It's daily cash flow. More plays, bigger prices. Let's find what this morning's winning numbers will be. Good luck to you. Okay, check your tickets. First number this morning is, first number is 1, second number is also 1, third number up, third number is 6, fourth and final number is 0. Let's recount those numbers. It's on the screen. Check your tickets. First number is 1, the second 1, third 6, fourth and final is 0. So that's 1, 1, 6, and 0. Congratulations, all winners. For daily cash flow tickets drawn last evening, we had a total prize field of $14,400 with a total of 19 winners. And of course, congratulations to those of you who are part of this payout. Reminding you as always to go out and grab your tickets for the midday games, because when you do, it helps to support sports, culture, and nation building. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with multi-X added to Playway and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
On exactly the same date, 1st of August, 2023. These regulations, Mr. Speaker, relate to benefits available to spouses and children upon the death of an insured person. The original commencement date was for July. But of course, with the changes, the date is now shifted to August 1st. Clause 2, Mr. Speaker, provides for the amendment to Section 2 of the Principal Act, which is the interpretation section, to revise the definition of a child, or the term child. The current definition within the Principal Act states as follows: a child in relation to an insured person includes a stepchild, an adopted child, and any other child, whether born in or out of wedlock, under the age of 16, living at home of an insured person and wholly or partly maintained by him or her. This particular definition in its current construct, Mr. Speaker, poses certain challenges for potential beneficiaries. So this new definition that I'm about to share with us this morning seeks to overcome these challenges or these problems within the current definition and set in order a new definition that is much clearer and prevents the exclusion of a child who, for example, does not live at home, as an example. And we will see as we go. So Section 2 of the Principal Act is amended by deleting the definition of a child and substituting with the new definition in this order. Child in relation to an insured person mean a biological child or a person declared or presumed to be a biological child. B, a stepchild. C, an adopted child. Or D, a person expressly acknowledged by the insured person as a biological child or stepchild under the age of 18. For the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, this section applies in respect of an insured person who dies after the commencement of this act. So what is this aiming to do? This amendment, Mr. Speaker, aims to make the definition more precise by removing the word include and substituting it for means. So child means, as opposed to a child includes. This precision in the definition of a child removes uncertainty and adds clarity as to who qualifies as a child for the purpose of NIS benefits on the passing of an insured person. Noteworthy, Mr. Speaker, in the new definition is the adjustment of the age from under 16, Mr. Speaker, to under 18. So the outgoing definition says under 16. This new definition says under 18. Within the current definition, the child had to be living at home with the insured at the time of passing. This phrase or condition is not found in the new definition, recognizing that there are many children who do not necessarily live at home with their parents. Within the current definition of the child, within the current definition, the child had to be maintained by the insured at the time of his or her passing. This phrase or condition is not found, Mr. Speaker, in this new definition, recognizing that there are many children who are not maintained by their parents financially, but that should not, in fact, disqualify the child from benefiting. So that covers the restructuring or the new definition for a child. Clause 3. Clause 3, Mr. Speaker, provides for amendment of Section 56 of the Principal Act to increase maximum penalty for commission of offenses stipulated under Section 56. Section 56 of the Principal Act prohibits various types of conduct, including failing to pay at or within the time prescribed for the purpose, any contribution, interest, surcharge, as the case may be, which he or she is liable to pay pursuant to the Act. You see, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there are situations in which the regulations of the NIS is being violated. And so we are recommending these changes so as to deter people and or companies from breaking these regulations. In other words, we are encouraging compliance. Some, Mr. Speaker, knowingly make a false statement or misrepresentation or produces or furnishes or causes or knowingly allows to be produced or furnished documents or information which he or she knows to be false in a material, particularly for the purposes of evading payment or for obtaining benefits. This, Mr. Speaker, we have to change, and the only way we would be able to sort of curtail these types of occurrences is by legislating changes that works. In this particular clause, Mr. Speaker, we are asking this Honorable House to acknowledge, first and foremost, that the maximum penalties under this particular section of the legislation is too low. Currently, the maximum penalty for these defaults are $1,000 and or 6 months imprisonment. This clause seeks to increase the maximum penalty from the $1,000 to $5,000. This is what we are doing. We are not trying to change the prison sentence, because the answer really and truly is not about putting people into prison, but it's really to encourage compliance. If you know you got to pay more for not complying, it will be cheaper for you to comply. And so we are asking this Honorable House to consider an increase in the maximum penalty for non-compliance from $1,000 to $5,000. The post-amble of Section 56 of the Principal Act is amended by deleting the word "one" before the words $1,000 and substituting, therefore, the word 5. This is a recommendation for that particular section. In other words, this particular section is asking something very simple. Change the maximum penalty from $1,000 to $5,000. Clause 4. Clause 4, Mr. Speaker, provides for amendment to Section 64 of the Principal Act to increase the maximum penalty that the minister may prescribe by regulations for commission of offenses stipulated under the regulations. Section 64(2) of the Principal Act empowers the minister to stipulate offenses for non-compliance and specifies that these prescribed penalties cannot exceed $500 and 3 months imprisonment. This clause, Mr. Speaker, seeks to increase, again, the maximum fine that can be prescribed from $500 to $2,000. Purpose: to deter people from committing these offenses. For reference, Section 25E of the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, Chapter 153, confers a general power to every functionary empowered to make regulations to prescribe criminal penalties not exceeding $10,000 or 12 months imprisonment, unless a contrary intention appears in a specified act. So this particular amendment says exactly what the maximum penalty is under this particular act. Section 64(2) of the Principal Act is amended by deleting the word 500 before the word dollars and substituting therefore the words 2,000 before the word dollars. So, Mr. Speaker, in essence, the changes to this bill, Mr. Speaker, is a rather straightforward bill. We're asking for three things. Or if you sum it up really and look at it closer, it's really two things. One, to have a new definition for the word child, and to increase the monetary penalties in both Section 64 and 56, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. And from here, is it MP Person Johnson? I'm not telling the lights from here. Okay, these are. Okay.
Thank you.
Honorable MP Person Andrew Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to place on record my unconditional support for the proposed amendment which is before us. This is obviously something that is so basic yet so fundamental that it needs no broad debate. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, no doubt it will be subject to bipartisan nod. While the amendment is for obvious, simple, descriptive clarity, it avoids the vagueness that could have been otherwise exploited to deprive children of their worthy inheritance and claims under the National Insurance Scheme. The amendment consolidates and makes sure that no person legally and morally regarded as a child can be robbed of any benefits and inheritance through any disingenuous maneuvering and inconsiderate actions. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, it ensures the consolidation of the right of children under the Act and avoid the fault of disempowerment that might otherwise be pursued. Having spent my entire political life fighting for women and children, I am particularly pleased to see the amendment presented here today. The amendment also seeks to discourage breaches by increasing penalties for any breach by expanding the penalties on two fronts. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to fully support those amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. Andrew Northwest. And now I invite Honorable MP St. Mark to make a contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I've always demonstrated, and whenever there is a bill that is in the interest of the people, it will have my full support. And this bill, as presented by the Leader of Government Business, is certainly one of those bills. Anything that can protect the interests of the children of our state is of importance to the nation. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to extend belated Happy Father's Day to the fathers sitting in this honorable house and to the fathers of this nation through you, Mr. Speaker. I think it is a great honor that God has bestowed upon us to be fathers or to be parents, and in this case, I just mentioned fathers, but to be parents. But it also has an awesome responsibility placed on us to carry out that responsibility, that duty, that pleasure, and to make it a pleasure with dignity, pride, whatever needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, I know there was a time when there used to be bedside registration, where the fathers were allowed to go to the hospital when the mother would have delivered, because it is very difficult to, well, impossible to doubt, or almost impossible to doubt who is the mother, because usually it's very clear. It is not always clear who is the father. And so some fathers unfortunately duck the responsibility because you have to go through certain testing to know who is that, who is the father. But we should not put children through that, because once a child knows that, they have to test to see if so-and-so, one of the honorable members on the other side was my father, or any member on this side. You know, it puts a sort of negative connotation to the whole parenting and fatherhood and so on. So I don't know if that continues, but I want to encourage through you, Mr. Speaker, our fathers of this nation, that when your spouse, your partner, whoever it is going to deliver, then be there and be man enough to sign and say, yes, I'm the father of that child. I know that opportunity was taken by many. I want to encourage them. I want to encourage fathers to take responsibility for their offspring in a more serious way, to attend relevant activities concerning their children, whether it's the parent day, PTA day, and be part of it, part of the children's activity. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to hear of the increase in the penalty, and also that the penalty in terms of prison service remains the same. Mr. Speaker, I wish we would not have a prison term at all, but that we would mandate that those fathers have a responsibility to find a job, because sometimes people make all kinds of excuses not to. And then they go to prison, the child, of course, they perhaps don't make a salary or in the prison, and so the child is not better off. So I hope we'll see less and less of prison term and more of compliance, not even the financial penalty, but compliance. And through you, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that our fathers really bear that responsibility with pride and dignity and commitment to their children. So I give my full support to this bill as presented by the member, and I just want to encourage our nation to take parenting more seriously, perhaps the minister with responsibility for social services can look into teaching people parenting, because sometimes it has to be taught. Sometimes they become parents so young that on both sides they do not even know much about parenting. And I know over past years, parenting has been taught, but maybe we need to intensify and give more support to parents so that they in turn can give more support to their offspring. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable MP for St. Mark, and now I invite Honorable MP for St. Andrews South East to make her contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise and I won't repeat anything that was said before except to say that I support this bill that is before us. And you know, one of the reasons that I really do support this is that there is still a perception in our society, and something we still need to address, you know, in a frontal way. You know, the discrimination, the separation, the referring to the half-brother and the half-sister, and this one was born in marriage and that one was not, or this one is living in the house and that one was not. And, you know, it brings me back, and members may recall, and every time I see Dr. Francis Alexis, that's what I remember. A child is a child. Every time I see the goodly man, that is all I remember. A child is a child. Because growing up as a child, I remember him advocating very strongly, and the passage of legislation in that regard. But I'm not sure that we've made sufficient progress in that regard, that a child is a child irrespective of the circumstances under which that child was born. And sometimes you see, even as mothers, sometimes we take certain positions against other children that may not be ours biologically, but maybe the child of a husband or, you know, a mate. And I think it's something that we have to think broadly about as a society, you know, that every child deserves to be seen. They're already equal, but they deserve to be seen as equal, treated as equal. And I really want to say this, that fathers do have a responsibility to prevent the circumstances that create this. But whenever the circumstances arise, whenever it exists, we have a responsibility as a society, how we refer to them. For example, I've heard people correcting people, no, is a half-daughter, half-sister, you know. And I really want to say this, that I hope this bill would further compound the fact, would further emphasize the fact that a child is a child. And I really want to encourage us to continue to promote this.
Thank you very much, MP for St. Andrew Southeast, and I now invite the MP for Carriacou, Peter Martinick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the proposed amendments, and it goes to show that this administration is really and truly people-centered and really interested about people. I had to go there. And Mr. Speaker, I rise not just only to give the support, but you know, I'm hearing a lot from the female representatives, my honorable friends on the other side. A lot is being said about the fathers, the men. But I want to put on record here, it might be a bit controversial, but I guess sometimes you just have to be. But as women too have a responsibility, mothers too have a responsibility, and women have a responsibility to be careful in terms of who they choose to bring forth or to procreate with. You have a responsibility, because oftentimes bad decisions are made and then the man always gets the blame. But females too have a responsibility. And I join with Honorable MP for St. Mark's and my dear friend, Honorable Emmeline Pear, join with them to encourage men to step up and to be real men and not sperm donors, and leaving our children not instilling good values which will help them to become better citizens. We have a responsibility, but it's not just left up to our brothers. It has to be a combined effort. And again, not just left up to the parents, but we should bring back that community spirit. It says it takes a village to raise a child, a community. That community spirit is dying in Grenada. And as leaders, we have to do something about it. But ease up the men a little. It's all of us in this together. And men must step up and do what they must do. But also, women have a responsibility to be very careful in terms of who they decide to make children with. I just thought I should just place that on record, and I support this bill 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP for Carriacou and Petite Martinique. And now I invite the MP for St. George Northeast to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to fully support the amendments as presented by the Leader of Government Business. Mr. Speaker, essentially all that is said captures the essence certainly of this amendment. But I want to make 2 points which I believe are fundamental too in the course of the conversation. And while most members have chosen to be micro, I will choose to be macro in terms of looking at this particular amendment. Now, I think in recent times, everyone can agree that we've been hearing the need to do the reformation to the National Insurance Scheme. And Mr. Speaker, these amendments, based on where I sit, certainly could be difficult if we did not choose to go the route of reforming the National Insurance Scheme and to be able to look after the needs of all of us and the most vulnerable. The second point I want to make to this is that when we talk about social safety nets, the need to only defend, as the ordinary man would put it, handouts, is something that we must not limit ourselves as policymakers to look at. And I refer, Mr. Speaker, particularly to social security, which is what this amendment seeks to address, to say that the most vulnerable among us, while the direct exchange of cash is always faster and important, but this loophole that was around for a long time is now actually going to be filled. And it shows, Mr. Speaker, that here, for the first time in a long time, you have a government that is not just looking at policies from a transactional political aspect, but is looking at it for the future development and benefit of our people. And Mr. Speaker, I think this is extremely commendable. And I want to congratulate the Leader of Government Business. I think his ministry, along with Senator Gloria Thomas at the other house, is doing an excellent job in looking after the interests of our people. And certainly with the recent addition, we can expect, Mr. Speaker, more people-centered policies that are looking at social security, the operative word, as opposed to the handouts and as opposed to loose arrangements, which oftentimes result in transaction for political benefits. And I think this is an ideal policy for the future, and it will help take care of the most vulnerable amongst us, in particular the children who are born without their doing and the situation that is created. So, Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I close to say that I fully support these amendments.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. George Northeast. All right. I think everybody has made Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank members on both sides. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, it just occurred to me I didn't record my support for the bill.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support the bill. I, in fact, wish to associate myself with all of the sentiments expressed by the honourable members of the House, except that I will digress a little with my distinguished MP for Piti Martinique and Carriacou. From where I sit, Mr. Speaker, the women always carry a disproportionate amount of the burden. And rarely, if anybody needs to step up, it's men. And I say that with no hesitation and unapologetically. Mr. Speaker, as an MP, perhaps 9 out of every 10 person who I see are women. And I cringe to report that in many instances, perhaps as much as 50% of the cases, leaving aside the possibility that some people may not always be telling you the truth, there are either significant cases of domestic violence, child neglect, or child abuse. And in almost 90% of the cases, they're perpetrated by men. And this is a scourge that we have to address openly. And the disadvantage that children face oftentimes in these situations, Mr. Speaker, is too horrific to respond. And so clearly ensuring that regardless, and that's part of why I'm digressing a little with my learned friend from MP, the circumstances in which children come into the world are probably in most instances not planned. And so as much as we may want to say that women need to be a bit more careful, perhaps after the first or second time you could perhaps be a little more critical, but certainly in many instances on the first occasion, especially for young women, pregnancy is not something they want. It's something that is the consequence of activity that they engage in. But similarly, the men ought to own up to the responsibilities associated with their actions and not just provide materially, but actually be parents to their children. And I think the suggestion from the Honourable MP for St. Mark that the teaching of parenting is something that needs to happen, is something that we need to address, because invariably, sometimes in full view of the public, you see parents physically, mentally, verbally, openly abusing their children. Whether it's pulling them, roughing them, slapping them, using language that is not even appropriate for adults. And then we expect our children to somehow grow up miraculously and function well in this world. So I think the amendment to the legislation obviously is designed to ensure that we don't just say a child is a child, but in fact we ensure that both legislatively and from a policy perspective, all children in fact do benefit. But I think the broader picture certainly is that to a large extent, many of the ills children are confronted with stem from the fact that men do not take their responsibilities as men, and particularly as fathers. Of course, those who do, we have to commend them and hold them up as mentors so that other men could in fact follow in their footsteps. So again, I want to commend the Leader of Government Business and all members of the House for the total bipartisan support of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank members of this Honourable House for their contribution to this discussion on the bill. And I just looking forward to the implementation of all of these changes that are being made at the level of the NIS as we continue to ensure that we have a strong and stable social security scheme for the nation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time, and all those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that this Honourable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This Honourable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, just repeat, Mr. Clerk. I cannot lose track.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Clause 2, honourable members, the question is that Clause 2, amendment of the Principal Act, form part of the bill. All those of that opinion say aye. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 3, amendment of Section 56 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 3, Amendment 56, forms part of the Principal Act. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4, amendment of Section 64 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 4, amendment of Section 64 of the Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those of that opinion say aye. All those of the contrary view say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title and commencement.
Honourable members, the question is, Clause 1, short title and commencement, forms part of the bill. All those of that opinion say aye. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and that the Chairman reports progress. The Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and the Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. As many have that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Honourable members, this Honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the Chairman's report be adopted. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honourable members, The question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Bill 2023.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Act Number 2, Bill 2023.
The bill seeks to amend the National Insurance Cap 205 to increase the pensionable age with consequential amendments to related legislation shortly entitled National Insurance Amendment Number 2, Bill 2023.
Item 16, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance.
Honorable MP for St. Andrew Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to provide some clarity on the new Imani program that the Honorable Member for St. George Northeast reported on earlier this morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the new Imani program has been a dynamic as well as a multifaceted program that has served the young people, thousands of young people of this country for many years. Of course, it had its challenges because we are dealing with human beings and a system that will never be perfect. We can strive for perfection, but Mr. Speaker, we must deal with reality. Mr. Speaker, it was mentioned that in May of 2022, a new batch of the program was included. And that is correct, Mr. Speaker, because it was a continuation of the inclusion of young people, giving them the opportunity to receive that training through the program that was done consistently on a biannual basis. In 2018, we had the inclusion of batch 6 of the program, 2020, batch 7. So following that part, in 2022, batch 8 was included. And after the launch of the program, what happens? The participants, or trainees as we call them, will begin their life skills sessions. And that goes for all of the participants. 3 months of life skills. Thereafter, they will be divided into different categories for placements. Some would move on to the TVET training. And I mentioned TVET here, Mr. Speaker, because the member spoke of it as if it's something new. No, it's a continuation of what has been there. TVET training, mainly in CVQ certified areas, spearheaded by the NTA, the agency that is now proposed to spearhead the overall program. Other participants went directly on the job for their training, and the other participants did educational enhancement whether it's through attending TAMCC, NULO, or St. George's University. If there are trainees who were found, and there are many who have been found not having the basic literacy and numeracy skills, foundation classes were set up for them. So it baffled me, Mr. Speaker, to hear that the batch that came in 2022, that is May last year, that they have been home since that time. The member has additional support, that of 2 new advisors. So if they did not want to continue with the plan that has been there, he had sufficient support to create their own plan. The House must be given, and I would say, a better representation of support to the young people through this program. To report that they have been home and you're not sure whether they are paid or not is cause for concern, Mr. Speaker, in my opinion. I have also heard the member mention on more than one occasion in this House questioning the ability of the staff involved with the program and generally at the ministry, questioning their abilities. Again, I'm baffled as well as concerned. Many of the staff members, highly qualified, and I can speak to the program manager at the time, masters in international business from St. George's University, plus years of experience in leading or managing youth programs. Other staff members have had or do have their bachelor's degree in youth development. So, Mr. Speaker, you are speaking about people who are leading and managing a program, highly qualified, much more than those who are today setting the policies and leading and managing this program. I expected the member to give us an update as to what is currently happening. It was originally mentioned MTA will take over. It's almost 1 year later, and we're hearing the same thing. We need better accountability for this program, Mr. Speaker. Also, in terms of the transition that the members spoke about, transition is a continuous process and has been transitioning from the program into permanent establishments. That has been always there. If it's continued, that is good for the young people. That's the ultimate goal of the program. But it is not anything new, and we will not accept it as if it's something new that have just started after June 2022, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so the next time the member decides to report on the program, it is not just about talk, but get the evidence, get the information. We cannot come here and give information because of ignorance of what has been there, Mr. Speaker. That's all I would say now on this program, Mr. Speaker, but I'm curious to hear about new initiatives as it relates to the young people of this country, because they have been looking forward to it, and so far, nothing new under the Ministry of Youth for them. I guess they are still auditing what has been done in the past. So many programs and projects for young people. It takes more than 1 year to complete. Mr. Speaker, I also heard the member for St. George's Southeast, responsible for housing, giving an update as to what has been happening with housing, Mr. Speaker, and providing the House with all the new plans and programs and the challenges that they found there. I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the issues he's raising, the concern he's raising, he will not have to go far to get the information. The then member responsible sits very close with him. So I would say, don't go far. The information is close to you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for St. Andrew Northeast. Honorable MP for St. Mark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity on the adjournment to extend through you, Mr. Speaker, commendations and congratulations to one little girl in St. Mark, Amelia Edwards, who scored very high in the CPEA. Now, well, I have to say, it's hearsay, because I have not seen the grades, but I have heard it from persons who should know. And I think, I am not here to question the government's decisions as to how they deal with CPEA results and so on, because that is their prerogative. They are the ones who in the driver's seat, and I think they have the rights, and so therefore it is not my issue here, but I just have a concern that those who do well, the children and their family, may wish to know that. How is that done? How do I as an MP, I cannot speak for others, others may not be interested, commend them and congratulate them, and maybe, offer some assistance, whether it's advice or so on, to the family who is having someone going to a secondary school, because sometimes the move is not as easy as we may think. And so, I think it is useful for us to know how well persons have done and how we can assist. But I am not here to complain on that. I just want to celebrate this child and all of the others who are now moving up into the secondary schools. I wish them well, and I trust that the schools will be prepared for the new faces and perhaps increased numbers. And I have no problem with a universal movement from primary to secondary, but I am mindful that there may be challenges that need to be dealt with in a timely manner to prepare all concerned for that move. So, Amelia Edwards and her family, through you, Mr. Speaker, commendations and congratulations on a wonderful performance. And to all those who have performed well in the CPE and all those who are at the point where they're moving forward, I wish them very well. Mr. Speaker, in the last sitting, I mentioned a troubling concern, and I will not belabor the point, except to just mention that it appears that the concern for the supplies of medical supplies, the availability of medical supplies at our hospital and in other health institutions has not significantly improved. In fact, and again it's hearsay from persons who have gone there to access certain things and that are not available. And, I have concerns about that. I just want to beg our Prime Minister and our honorable members on the other side who are in government to ensure that measures are taken to improve it, and also to let us know, to let the situation be known to us, and it may have been remedied, and I don't know. I just want to be able to celebrate that we have improved on the supply, medical supplies, and the availability of medical supplies at especially our hospitals, our 3 hospitals, but in particular General, which serves all the different areas in the Tri-Island state. I want to beg that we take it seriously, that the members in government side maybe have conversations with the ministry, and ensure that there is some improvement, because the reality is that regardless of what we may say happened or did not happen in the past, this is a new government, and there have been very serious promises for improvement and a different way. So let us see a transition in that regard, so that at least some of us can go to sleep a little bit more comfortable. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you, Honorable MP for St. Mark, for sharing your concerns and, of course, commending the outstanding student from your constituency. I now notice the light of the Honorable MP for St. George Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on this adjournment to congratulate the students of St. George Northeast in successfully completing the CPA examination. As a policy direction of this government, we believe in universal education and right of a child to access secondary school education. Second issue I want to raise, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to hurricane season. We saw recently that Tropical Storm Brett was formed. I believe that given the fact that we are in the hurricane season, and irrespective whether we are in the belt normally or not, I think preparation must always be something center and on the minds of our people. And I want to say to residents of St. George Northeast, the NADMA's district coordinator is very active. We have had representation there in the past, but in particular this rounds, I am confident that we can do a lot more in ensuring that we alleviate in the potential that we get threatened, and also as a response mechanism in the constituency, I think we're going to do much better. God forbid that we are under any threats. So I want to place on record my commitment as MP to ensure that this is done. Mr. Speaker, I want to address the issue as it relates to healthcare in St. George Northeast. Now, upon coming in 1 year ago, we campaigned particularly on the situation of access to healthcare. It was disturbing to see the reality as to the state of facilities. It was disturbing to undergo some of the visits repeatedly and the concerns of residents in the area of it. But I can report that we have completed one of the medical stations. We are now preparing to complete the second out of 3, and we have secured support by the way of refrigerators. And I heard the honorable member speaking about healthcare, but I want to bring to the public's attention a very serious concern in that presently, I can't speak for all, but presently in St. George Northeast, refrigerators, we only have 1 in each medical station. And the same fridge that holds a drink is housing medication and other aspects. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that we have been able to secure 3 refrigerators for each of the medical stations, which we can begin the separation of that problem in St. George Northeast. And so this is going to go a long way in ensuring we do not continue on that path. Mr. Speaker, I do not necessarily need to rehash any specific issue that was raised by Honorable Member for St. Andrew North East. But, Mr. Speaker, the mind boggles as to what really we are faced with here presently. I get the understanding that you need to defend your government's policy, so I'm not getting into that. But I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, the present situation of the Imani program has made available information. We have only recently changed the coordinator of youth, about 3 months ago. And we are now at a position with clear understanding as to the state of the program. The program was not achieving its objectives. It was not providing job opportunities. The program essentially, at the cabinet level at the time, was listed as a social safety net. So I am saying, even from a policy standpoint, we ought not to play these kinds of baseless games. But to add insult to injury, let's identify some of the concerns. The manager of the Imani program, qualified, never had the opportunity to manage the program, was never allowed to access mainframe information, all the likes, and we can go on and on. Her appointment there was not a part of the establishment, but was just a mask, really, to say that somebody is there. She had no authority to do anything. No one reported to her. Prior to the last general election, Mr. Speaker, the then administration chose to amalgamate all the supervisors. So the same supervisor for Hope, Empower, etc. was all under one banner. So you had a situation, supervisor, supervising supervisor. That was the situation. I want to add some clarity, Mr. Speaker, to this fallacy that has been espoused on radio stations throughout the country, particularly promoting the opposition's agenda. Now, the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture and the Department of Youth, Sports and Culture only has one advisor in the name of Mr. Patrick Simmons. Only one. I am not going to engage in any bickering and we wouldn't bring the House to that disrepute. But I'm saying, if we are discussing the future of the program, which I hope we are, we must acknowledge that we had to do an assessment as where the program was and where we are going to take it. And we have said clearly, in the process of upskilling the program, there had to be changes to be made. So for example, one change that we made was when the 1,200 people went into different constituencies, and this is what we were told at the ministry by the workers of the program itself, and just handpicked and placed on the program before the election. Some of them did not have the proper requirement to join the program at that level. They needed something else before they could go on the program. So no preparations were made in dealing with that. The vacuum this then created was to say that you ended up with about 1,200 people that you had to look after, but the program itself did not have the question of availability of jobs in the first instance. So you was not in a position to exit and transition the current group of people, but you went and you just added some more, created the burden, and now is of, well, I don't know how we can judge to say that the program was achieving whatever objective. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, this program was not transitioning young people to permanent employment, which is what we want to fix. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on with this. And just to end, all right, I won't get into the details. We recently had to have a meeting concerning the future of the garment factory. And it is a clear indication, in my view, that the former administration has to get serious and tell the young people what they were doing, how they were using them, and stop engaging in this petty political banter over these issues. Youth development, Mr. Speaker, in our view, is not guided or should not be guided by political use of young people in political programs that are not achieving their personal objectives. So we must be careful with that. So when we talk about youth, you say have the facts. Well, we have the facts. And we're going to be releasing the report on the Imani program to the public once we complete every single detail, so that the public will see, signed by the minister, signed by the PS, what the findings report. So let us not go down that road and engage in petty political exchanges. I think we have to be serious. These are different times. We have seen generational change in leadership, and therefore we must fall in line with that direction. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that as young people, our contribution to this is to challenge what was not working, and is to ensure that as we go forward in future, those aspects that did not work, that we fix and correct them and improve our dexterity to be able to deal with some of the problems that we may face in the future. That is how I see it, and that's the philosophy that I want to carry as long as I serve in this honorable house for the people of St. George Northeast. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. George Northeast. And I see the lights of Honorable MP for St. Andrew Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise again this morning to continue a conversation that started in this House, and that is to do with universal education. I've heard at least 3 persons mention it this morning. A lot has been said, Mr. Speaker, over the past few weeks about whether people should be named, whether scores should be attached, whether everybody should go or should not go. As a matter of fact, the point that was made, or the statement made by my colleague, Honorable MP for St. Mark's, and then I don't remember which of, member for St. George's Northeast would have gone on to congratulate individuals. I am sitting there, Mr. Speaker, and I'm thinking I want to congratulate too. But then again, we defeated the whole purpose of where we are, what we are trying to do, Mr. Speaker, which brings me to the point that we have to be always so careful about how we do what we do, because everybody around this table can start listing some names of people who we would want to congratulate. And my dear colleague, when she said it, I thought, you know, maybe I should congratulate somebody too, and I would really love. But Mr. Speaker, then I start thinking, you know, who calculated the score, who got the score, where they got it from. And again, Mr. Speaker, I make the point, we have to be so careful about how we do what we do in relation to this subject, because, Mr. Speaker, and I didn't make the point when I spoke about a child is a child, because one of the things that happens, sometimes we're not able to measure, is the damage done to children in the process. So when I see myself as a stepchild or this child or half child, whatever I see myself as, it may be difficult to measure what effect that has on me for the rest of my life as on an individual, and I'm using just an example. It is the same way, Mr. Speaker, as she said, if this child is not able to celebrate, or this one is able to celebrate, right? And then another child might be asking, well, how much did I come? How did she know how much she came? Mr. Speaker, we want to avoid this. And we want to avoid it not in relation to they are well in place, because I'm sure they're speaking from a point of knowledge. So they may have gotten some scores reliably from some place, right? And they can speak to that. But the fact that everybody doesn't have it, and the way that it was done, Mr. Speaker, that is where I believe we want to be extremely careful. So my view on this, and I'll be very straightforward and blunt about this, I have absolutely no issue, and I don't think anybody in Grenada should have an issue with universal education. Children having access. As a matter of fact, if we say access to secondary school, I still don't have an issue. And I don't think we would find anybody in this room who might have an issue. Mr. Speaker, it is the how, it is the when, the timing, Mr. Speaker. And what are those things that should be done before certain things are done that makes it a challenge and makes it a difficulty? And which is why we have this perfect example on both sides of the house this morning that points to exactly what we are talking about. So I've heard some very dismissive statements made over the last few weeks. Parents who express concerns, relatives who express some concerns, teachers who express concerns. And Mr. Speaker, that does not help. That further compounds the problem, because what we ought to be doing is addressing the issue in a way that the doubts, the question that my colleague MP just raised, the doubts is no longer there. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, that my major concern with this is the how it was done, the effect it is likely to have on children who are anxiously for months looking forward to the results and their placement, and a few days before they were told, no, it's not going to happen, right? So I'll rest on this. But I want to just make the point, because I heard MP for St. George's Northeast made the point that children have access, right? And this is great. Let's give everyone access, right? But is access the solution? And I believe that is what we really want to ask ourselves, particularly in terms of the context of the timing. Is access, full stop, the solution? Because we may discover that it's not just an issue of equality, but it's more so an issue of equity, Mr. Speaker. And I want us not to lose the essence and the significance of some of the comments made over. I've heard someone said, well, we don't care. We achieve it in 1 year. Mr. Speaker, we can do and undo at the same time. And we ought to be extremely cautious. And let us not be, as I said, dismissive over concern. So when my colleague said a concern, we should be quick to hear what the concern is and how we address it, not to dismiss. And I've heard some very strong dismissive statements over this subject. As I said, I would never stand to say I don't support universal education. But I won't be dismissive in that way over someone who has a concern about how it was done. So, Mr. Speaker, let me just make a few points as it relates to the subject of equity and equality. When we speak of access, when we speak of equality, we're talking sameness. When we speak about equity, we're talking now fairness, which is what I would like to strongly recommend that we place some more attention on. So how do we ensure that every child has that fairness or access to that fairness and not just the access? So let us just use an example. And going back to the previous administration in office, one of the policy decisions taken was that of all teachers should access Teachers College. And there was a planned program. I'm not saying, and I would never ever say, stick to the program. You can revise, you can change, you can do whatever with the program. But every teacher must go to Teachers College. That's a policy position. I don't think it was changed. But not only that, that persons who are not yet in the system should be given an opportunity to be educated, to be qualified as a teacher, to be trained even before they go in the classroom. So we have a number of persons out there, and I pray that they'll be considered, who have already completed Teachers College, even if they've never been to the classroom. And these things are so important, Mr. Speaker. For example, if everyone is going to have access, then differentiated learning becomes extremely important. So teachers must no longer be teaching everyone access, but each child must be catered for individually. And this is where differentiated learning comes in. And it's a skill. It's not something you just tell people to do, which is why the previous administration would have invested so much in the training of teachers, something that should never stop, right? Because you can't finish. That's a process. But the second thing I want to make mention of, Mr. Speaker, is the importance of our facilities, our schools, the continuous rehabilitation, upgrading, expansion, and catering to those needs. So I heard my colleague MP from St. Andrew Northeast, I always have to go slowly when I get the names right, made mention that CVQ is nothing new, TVET is nothing new, and so what we are saying is we want to see it expanded. So under our past administration, the national TVET policy was approved at the Ministry of Education. UNESCO was very much involved. Technical people were brought on board to get that work together with the NTA completed. We're saying now it's a golden opportunity to build upon that. Last week I heard somebody say we need a policy, right? The other thing that's critical to that, Mr. Speaker, is not just having the policy, but providing the access. So for example, when you talk about a new school, and we can take Grenada Christian Academy as an example. So Speaker, before we left office, work was done in terms of preparation for the start of construction of that school. As a matter of fact, we were on the point of preparing to have a contractor named, right, for that project. Mr. Speaker, but when you look at the design for that school, you would see the vision as it relates to TVET. You would see the design as it relates to the policy of not just access, but equity. And it's not that this was going to be the first school in relation to that, Mr. Speaker, and sometimes, you know, there isn't the knowledge, and that is important to have. But, Mr. Speaker, in a number of schools around Grenada, in June of 2022, students were indeed, as you would recall, students were actually doing CVQs in school. So again, I heard recently, we must start CVQ in schools. And we should do general construction because we do need masons and carpenters and so on. Of course we do, and we need a lot more. Let's expand. But right here in Grenada, students were doing CVQ in general construction. Students were also doing CVQ in furniture making, Mr. Speaker. And so the point is, let us now look at how, not be dismissive, but let us look at how we can build upon. Let us look at how we can use what is there to get the maximum, because I believe for all of us, we want a better education system. Mr. Speaker, but if you allow me 1 minute to just say this. The policy position then was that students who did not meet the requirement, while you build all of those infrastructural support systems, while you get e-books that students can go at their own pace, differentiated learning, that the fast one can go, the slow one can do their work and to continue. Mr. Speaker, while all of this was happening, Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that we cannot just stop there, but we have to look at what do we do to go to the next level, the next step. And that is what I want to encourage us to do. For example, Ms. Gertrude Niles, I can't help but name her, National Coordinator for Literacy. These students were actually taken, those who did not meet the grade, the pass mark. And there's teachers who are working with them on a program. Teachers were paid a stipend in most cases, retired teachers as well. And these students in 2021 is a good example. They were worked with weekends, holidays, summer vacation. And if you look, you would see many of them improve their performance within the year and were then able to move on to secondary school. Mr. Speaker, whatever we do, however we do it, I just want to remind us to consider not just equality, but equity, not just access, but individuals who may have emotional, psychological, other issues that we have to look at the whole person and how a particular decision, how it is done, can affect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP, for St. Andrews Southeast. Am I seeing the light of the MP for Carrick? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, it's amazing. It's amazing when the shoes is on the other foot. You hear the complaints, and I hear the word dismissive and not listening and all that. And I recall a situation in Carriacou at Mount Pleasant Government School when some decision was made, and some people were very dismissive, and some people did not want to listen. But it's just amazing. I just thought I should just put that there. But it would be remiss of me, Mr. Speaker, if I did not stand here today once again to thank the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Mr. Speaker, 1 year, 3 days from now, Friday, will mark 1 year. The people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique has made the historic decision to elect me as their member of parliament. And I am indeed proud of them and happy to continue to serve them. And I thought it was important for me to just place this on record, thanking them and recognizing our 1 year as parliamentarians, as members of parliament, and to commend all of us for the work, for the excellent work that we have done. You know, we were called rookies, we were called babies. And when I see the excellent work, not only as ministers of government, but also the excellent work that all members of parliament are doing within their constituencies, I'm indeed pleased by that. And Mr. Speaker, let me also raise this particular issue because I raised it the last time I was here, and I'm so elated to know that after bringing it here, that the matter has not been resolved. You know, I think 2 weeks ago when we were here, I raised the issue regarding traveling to, the folks traveling from Carriacou to Grenada via the Tyrrell Express and the Dolly Sea, being constantly harassed by port security. And I'm happy that with the intervention by our Honorable Prime Minister, I must put on record, thank him for that, that the passengers are no longer being harassed. And I'm indeed proud and happy about that. The people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique are extremely happy for that. Because in the end of the day, we are one. We are part of the state. And you know, when the folks from Union Island or Bequia or Mairo go over to St. Vincent, they are not harassed like that. When the folks from Trinidad go over to Tobago and vice versa from Tobago to Trinidad, that don't happen. And so because recognizing that we are part of the state, we are your sister islands, we should be treated same way. Because when the Tyrrell Bay and the Dolly Sea comes up to Carriacou with folks from the mainland, we don't harass them like that. So I'm happy that this matter has now been put to bed, and I again want to put on the record my thank you to Prime Minister for getting involved. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you, Honorable MP for Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I feel quite passionate about education, so I think it's important for me to, in the absence of the Minister of Education, obviously, in this House, to speak a little bit on the question of education. And I will start off by saying I actually agree with everything that has been said by the MP for St. Andrew Southeast. And that education is something we should feel passionate about. But I also think we should not, because it has been that way, continue to believe we can improve our education system by being reluctant to make some of the changes we need to make. And I appreciate that sometimes when you do make changes, the disruptions will always cause some level of discomfort. And that it's important for us as the policy holders to treat with the concerns or the discomfort in an open and frank and honest manner. So that the public, parents and students in particular, the teaching profession, the business community, understand what it is we are trying to achieve. And I say we here, meaning including members of the opposition. And I'm particularly mindful that the MP for St. Andrew Southeast has been the Minister of Education for some considerable time. And so perhaps she is more uniquely placed than anyone else to speak on the issue of whatever policy initiatives that might have been started under, or while she was Minister of Education, or while the opposition members had formed the government. So I think the sober question we have to ask first and foremost is whether our education system is really serving the needs of the population of Grenada. I think that's the first and foremost question we have to ask. And I think there are easy tools by which we can measure that. If the education system was serving our needs, why do we have the Imani program? And the millions of dollars we pump into the Imani program, if we, from a policy perspective, had pumped those funds into the education system, would we have the need? Because let's face it, the Imani program is essentially a remedial program. We talk about life skills. I don't think at 12, 13, or 14 you get into the Imani program. I'm subject to correction. What age do you get into the Imani program? At 18. Okay. So if you wait till 18 to teach your children life skills, what's the point of the last 18 years? In fact, I would have taught the life skills, in some instances, are more important during the first 18 years than thereafter. So when we talk, and I say this because I sometimes get the impression that whenever we talk about something, somehow it's been viewed as if we're saying something is new. Of course it's not new. CVQ is not new. TVET is not new. The NTA, we met all of these things there. And we're accepting that they need to be strengthened, expanded, encouraged, frankly, given more prominence than the relentless pursuit of academic certification. And I'm saying that has to be a fundamental shift that starts at primary school, not secondary school. So when we talk about access to education, and access to even secondary, I'm using secondary here simply as far as I view, Mr. Speaker, as when you start becoming a teenager. It is not just academic access. It may very well mean going in a TVET type arrangement almost exclusively. And we have to be able to say as a nation, that's fine. We support that, we encourage that, and give our students who want to pursue that type of education the same prominence, the same accolades as someone who wants to pursue the traditional academic type routes. And so when we talk about equity, yes, because we also want them to know that the result of that equity would be the ability to get employment and to be deployed in the economy without feeling that you're a second-class citizen. So I'm saying, where's the accolades of the furniture maker, the mason, the plumber, the electrician? Where historically, and this has nothing to do with the opposition, I'm saying this is us as a society, where historically have we created, in our post-independent period, an education system that held up these people? We have not. And so the question of access and equity and the broader context of what kind of education system we have means oftentimes, respectfully, the people who are in control of the education system themselves resist the change. And this is just the nature of life. If you are in control of something and somebody else tells you you need to change, oftentimes you will resist the change because you just want to keep doing what you've done. And this is a national challenge that we face. Our principals, our teachers, our parents, our students, we as a society have to ask ourselves, if we keep churning out hundreds of students who then need remedial literacy classes, remedial math classes, and we can talk about that. I don't think the former Minister of Education and current MP could have been satisfied with our pass rates in math and literacy. And I'm using very basic terms, I'm not even calling it mathematics and whatever, math and literacy. And we've had some policy initiatives that have failed us. So where are the literacy specialists? Are they in secondary schools or primary schools? They're in secondary schools. They're not at the primary schools. So of course what is going to happen is that by the time you get to secondary schools, you have children who can't read and write. So they're functionally illiterate. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this is something that we have to talk about openly as a nation. This is not about casting blame on the opposition. This is not casting blame on us. I'm saying as a country, as a nation, we have valued, cherished, encouraged one type of education system. One based purely on this excessive obsession with CXC, certification, and these grades. And we've obsessed over it, and what has it produced? I'll tell you what it has produced, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Labour will tell you that we are signing certificates for work permits en masse for construction workers. So you can go down to Lasajas and count the number of Grenadians who work there versus the number of non-Grenadians who are doing construction type jobs. That's the reality. We can go to Spice Basket in St. George's Northeast, which has been renovated by one of the call centers which have expanded from St. Andrew. They are importing carpenters. When I acted as the Minister for Labour, because the Honourable Minister was outside and I saw the work permits, I actually blinked a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't imagining this. That is what is happening. That is the end result. We can go to all the marine yards. Other than having our people work as helpers who pick up things and drop stuff here, all of the skilled technicians are imported. So I am saying, Mr. Speaker, our education system has to be fundamentally revamped. And frankly, we do not have the time. And so yes, some of the decisions are going to have to be made quickly and they are going to have to be implemented. Our children will continue to get left behind. I can go further, Mr. Speaker. What is the percentage that tourism contributes to our GDP? Everybody accepts it is the single biggest driver of the economy. And look at our education system. We pay lip service to it. There's no culinary school on the island. There really is no service school on the island. Nulo and Son obviously have done their best and have tried. TAMCC to some extent. But if you just take the total number of persons who work in the tourism industry, you will see that our education system again makes no reference to that. And worse yet, Mr. Speaker, if it does, it is always the low-end jobs that our people get. So they are not part of the supply chain. They don't own the dive shops. You have dive shops in Carriacou. Is any Grenadian operating a dive shop in Carriacou? No. So, Mr. Speaker, the reality is, if we do not, as a parliament, as a cabinet, as persons within the education system, sober up to the reality. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we're even importing people to do some of the low-end jobs. People don't want to accept that. There are Grenadians hiring Filipinos to do domestic work and getting work permits for it in Grenada. That's the reality of the situation. And then it's compounded by, and the Minister of Education will tell you that, because we encourage this fascination with grades and certification and brand name school versus non-brand name school. What have we created, Mr. Speaker? We've created a situation where some schools are overcrowded and some are underpopulated. We have to tell the truth. Your child is at a disadvantage if they're in a class with 60 students or 50 students or 40 students compared with 20. So why would we have schools? And Mr. Speaker, I'm not casting this on any, I am saying we face this reality now. And I hope the MP for Petit Martinique and Carriacou would allow me to say this. In the current allocation, Mr. Speaker, we have a situation where Bishop's College, a brand new school, is built. It has how many? 28 students? 28 have been allocated to Bishop's College. And how much to Hillsborough? Over 50 something. You have a newer school that's probably bigger and has more space. So you send double the amount of students to one compared to the other. Now, I'm thinking, if we simply explain to our parents, or students, or stakeholders, how could that make sense? You're obviously going to be overworking one set of teachers, underworking some. We have to be courageous enough to tell the truth and say, let us have a conversation. So even if you want your child to go to Hillsborough, there's a certain point where you don't put them outside, in the hallway. You have to say, listen, we make the school great. The parents, the teachers, the students. We have the ability to improve and change the schools. We can't keep pushing everybody to go PBC, or pushing everybody to go Convent St. George's, or pushing everybody to go SAS. Because the schools will be overcrowded, the teachers will be stressed, our schools are not air conditioned, the place is hot, you can go on and on and on. So we have to get to the point where we say, the equity requires us to make all our schools good. all our schools great. And we cannot do so if we have a system where we're trying to squeeze people into a particular school because of the historical brand name associated with it. Many of which is artificial. And I will give the perfect example of my alma mater. Of course it's a great school. But why did it perform academically well? Because if 50 boys pass common entrance or CPA, 40 of them goes to BBC. That's all. In those days, it was a more or less single stream school. 1 Form 1, 1 Form 2, 1 Form 3. Now it's double and triple stream. So you can do well in St. David's Secondary School. It's probably cheaper. You don't have to take the bus. So I'm saying the issue of education, Mr. Speaker, is something that as a country, we have to have a national debate upon. We have to examine what has happened in the last 50 years. What we've been very good at, let us keep it, enhance it, and improve it. The parts of it that needs changing, as the Jamaicans would say, dash it away. And I therefore welcome the comments by the former Minister of Education and the MP for St. Andrews South East, and I will encourage him, whether it's to write, whether it's to speak, whether it's to advocate, so that we could have the benefit of experience and some of the policy initiatives, so that we could actually make and be proud of the education system 10, 15 years from now. Because as it stands, Mr. Speaker, I am being honest, I don't know that in the round, we could say that our education system is doing what we want or expect of it. And there's rapid changes taking place, which our teachers and so on need to grapple with. Rapid technology change, and I'll end on this note. I'm trying to remember if I graduated from primary school or whether when I left, we just went there. I honestly don't know. I suppose knowing most schools, you celebrate any achievement. So I'm going to assume, since my memory is failing me, that there was some form of graduation. But I attended my daughter's graduation yesterday. Right? I forgot actually that I was meant to give the charge to the students. So I just assumed I was there as a parent, and then I remembered. And so in the 5 or 10 minutes that I was waiting while the graduation was going on, I took out my phone, Mr. Speaker, and I went on to chat GPT. And if you don't know what that is, Mr. Speaker, I'll explain to you shortly. And I asked ChatGPT to give me a 3-minute speech to a graduating class of 11 to 12-year-olds. And it gave me the speech in a minute. Exactly 3 minutes. Then I said, I read it, I didn't like it. So I then said to it, give me an inspirational speech for a graduating class of, 11-year-olds. I got the speech back in a minute. I still didn't like it. So I then said, give me a funny speech. And I got the funny speech. And I went up and I delivered the speech that was written by ChatGPT. Now at that point, everybody laughed, everybody clapped. And I then said to the audience, I have a confession to make. And the confession is, I did not write the speech, my assistant did not write the speech, the press secretary did not write the speech. I in fact forgot that I was required to give this charge. And that the speech was written by artificial intelligence, the program known as ChatGPT. And as you can see, for the most part, you all like the speech. We clapped, the area that was meant to be funny was funny. So the question is, Mr. Speaker, I confessed, I admitted that. In the context of our education and in the context of artificial intelligence, when you give a child an assignment that says, go write a descriptive story about your parish, St. David, Mr. Speaker, ChatGPT can do that for you in 30 seconds on your phone, multiple versions of it. If you require to hand that assignment into your teacher, you think if you do not tell the teacher this is ChatGPT, that the teacher will know? That's the kind of challenge our education system faces. And I'm not pretending I know the answer to it. But that is the kind of power of the technology that we exist now. And it is not just descriptive, it will be the same for math, it will be the same for engineering, all of those things. It could even give you, if you tell it, write an election campaign for the National Democratic Congress for an election, it will write the campaign for you. It will tell you what you need to do. So the reality is, we are going through fundamental technological change at a pace that is unheralded, unforeseen. And our children have to grow up in that world. They have to grapple with that world. Our teachers have to grapple with that world. And so we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And so it will take a national approach. It will take all of us consulting, being on board, and I will accept that the book starts with us, in making sure that we engage in that more consultative process on the education system so that we can implement the right policies for the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. And I sense Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, having heard everything, there's nothing more to add. I stand to move the adjournment of this Honorable House. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House be adjourned. But before I take the vote, I just want, on behalf of the Senate House, to commend the media workers of Grenada. I just recall that they are celebrating Media Week. And the media is what we call them the fourth estate, but they play an important role in terms of letting the rest of the world know what happens in Parliament. So, on the behalf of all of us here in Parliament, I want to commend the folks in media, whatever form of media you happen to be. I want to commend you and to wish you well as you celebrate Media Week. The clerk and I had a session with them on the roles and function of Parliament and how media can be more effectively used as a bridge between Parliament and the people. So on behalf of the Parliament of Grenada, I wish to commend our media folks, the folks of MWAG, it is called, as they celebrate Media Week 2023. And with that said, I now take the vote. The question is that this Honorable House be adjourned, sine die. All those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned, sine die.